A couple of days have passed since the last moving vlog. My parents took a couple days off to get prepared for and celebrate with us Thanksgiving, and I came back midnight after, Thanksgiving night to come clean up the garage because we made a lot more drywall dust, cutting all the holes for the vents and putting them in, and I had to put some mud up on the wall to patch some spots where we kind of chunked out the ceiling, putting the vent corners in, and get things kind of cleared out because we need to paint this weekend. It's gonna get really cold moving forward. We are at the end of November at this point, so winter is rapidly approaching, and paint doesn't like the cold, so we need to paint quickly, which means suddenly our plans are kind of in a different order, and we need to kind of rush getting everything cleaned out. That way we're ready to paint. Here we just had to expand the frame that the window's set in because they put this slanted piece of trim for the window to sit on, and it doesn't fit. Like, it didn't fit all the way in, so the window never actually shut. And obviously that's important for a studio, to have a window that shuts. Imagine. We're all cleaned up and taped up and ready to paint. Yes. We're gonna be using a spray painter that we have in there. Gray, blue, gray. And then we're just gonna hit the ceiling with the gray too. So it should be pretty freaking great. Reflective for color, but good for skin tones and not this weird off-white stuff. And I have completely scrubbed the garage door here so that it is ready for insulation as well. This video is brought to you by Nerd or Die and their iridescent stream package. If you want something that's minimal, clean, but also has a little bit of flair with the little sticker accents, Nerd or Die's latest stream package is the one for you. This one is really kind of slick, has light and dark themes, and has way more content and customization than even Nerd or Die's normal stream packages. So check them out in the link in the video description, or head over to eposvox.gg/nerdordie to learn more. So I'm actually dubbing over this because the microphone wasn't working right and this is way too echoey to hear. I started laying out where I expect things to go using painter's tape on the concrete based on my current layout. So this is where I expect my server rack to go. Next to, well, in front of the garage door here, but next to where the HVAC unit will go. And then a expanded desk here, or possibly my workbench with the pegboard on the wall here. And then my existing desk from my apartment with the full L shape would go right here in this corner, basically exactly how it was in the apartment. This would allow me to set up my test benches, my normal editing workstation, and a little bit of filming space here in this corner, and still have room. And then the chair would pull out, and I'd have space next to it for like a bookshelf or some drawers or what have you. And then we come over here, and I'm expecting to kind of float out the retro room entertainment center TV stand that we built and angle it at the corner to kind of recreate the retro room feel that I had at the apartment. My goal here is to initially have things kind of looking similar, but just more space and more flexibility. So this would get me kind of almost the exact same sets to work with, which should theoretically give me a faster kind of setup, but a lot more space and a lot more depth here. So if I am shooting from this corner with a camera mounted above my monitors, I have all this open space to put up lighting and to move my tripods around and light stands and all of that. And then maybe storage here up against the wall, but this doesn't necessarily feel right yet. So even though this is kind of a shift from our plans, this actually works out better for us to have painted first. And this is really exciting because this is, really kind of bringing the space together with my first actual customization that, I picked out. I picked out the colors, the gray, the blue. I was trying to get a gray that was as close to 50% neutral gray for video as possible so I could throw color on it and it wouldn't mess with my skin tones like the off-white walls do and things like that. And so I was super stoked, but It was a big space, and my parents had already spent 3 weeks painting the inside of our house with, rollers and paintbrushes and all of that jazz, while I was busy working on the garage, parenting my child, and moving and packing. And so they didn't really want to try to roll it all again because their arms were already jelly. So they picked out this paint sprayer kit on Amazon and wanted to try that for a more efficient, quick paint job. And so the first little bit here is us actually just trying it out, figuring out how it worked, what distance we needed, what pattern we needed, and then having one of us go behind and roll. And one of the quickest things we noticed was that with the sprayer, the mud spots showed up, at least with the gray, through the paint very quickly and would require more coats. And so what you will see at one point is me actually rolling part of the wall. That's not to just paint the wall, it's to get additional coats of paint already on the mud, soaking in so that the color would stick and not show up all blotchy. And in fact, that ended up not being a huge problem overall, but we were still trying to figure out what we were doing, and this was our experimental wall. However, you will notice after I get up on the ladder and I'm doing that upper bit, which is patchy as can be, like you can see so much of the original wall through that. I did not do a good job. I don't use the sprayer anymore. There was nothing ever verbally stated between my parents and I about this, but they kind of took over from there, and I don't know if it's due to my terrible technique or them just thinking that it would be more efficient for them to do it, but they kind of took over and ran with it from there, and frankly they were exponentially better at it in the first place. So I am super grateful for that, especially combined with the fact that I have terrible baby hands, and that was freaking brutal on my hands. So honestly, I'm gonna take this moment, and this is awkward because I know they're watching the vlogs now at the time of recording, but just give the biggest of possible shout outs to my parents here, because they literally had already spent by this point 2 to 3 weeks painting our downstairs and upstairs living rooms in our house, and then turned around and did this for 2 days, which, as far as I could tell, I would not have survived with my hands trying to hold that sprayer for the entire garage. And it's just freaking crazy. But the first day was spent primarily just doing the gray. So we were hitting the walls, the corners, and getting up to the point where we were painting the blue. And this taped off section is actually where we were going to paint blue. And you'll notice we're using gray here. And again, that is purely to get paint over the patches, and the gray will, or the blue will actually cover up the gray very quickly. So it didn't matter, and we had a lot more gray to work with than blue, even though I ended up having to go buy more anyway. And by Saturday night, this moved really quickly. We had a wonderful looking, especially once it started drying, coat of gray paint, well, multiple coats at this point, on the ceiling and most of the walls of the garage. It looks awesome. And with that heater running to help dry it out, because it's getting very, very cold outside and we don't want it to run, it is all blending together. It doesn't look patchy anymore, and it is starting to look amazing. And my dad did most of that ceiling, and it pretty crazy. But honestly, blending the ceiling together with the gray versus leaving it white or trying to mask it off somehow with the sprayer was the right call, and the gray ceiling looks great. So tomorrow on Sunday, we're tackling the blue. So by this point, I filmed a lot less with my action cam for like time lapses and stuff for about a week, as it just kind of got to the point that we had to finish and get things going. So here's a look at how the blue was turning out. And then as a little bit more finished, currently my mom and dad are here trimming up the edges where we have between the gray and the blue, and we're gonna have a painted piece of trim dividing these sections. That way it looks like a separate section. And we have a nice blue corner for my whichever corner this ends up being. We also ended up spray painting the baseboard, the little foundation board that sticks out. This was totally unnecessary. It's never going to be seen, but it looks so good. And I ended up doing a lot of that with a brush as well. So that was really nice. I'm glad I had the time to do it. But overall, the paint turned out amazing. It looks like a completely different space. Buggies for snow.
Buggies for snow. I'm barefoot.
Oh, that's...
Oh, what's this?
He's like, it's really freaking cold.
What is this?
It's snow.
Oh, he's interested.
What is
He
that
can't
stuff?
stay out here though.
What is that stuff?
See, it keeps hitting me.
Little snows.
Happy for a snow booger.
Happy for snow.